I also saw a video from one of their primary investors, or I shouldn't say primary, a large investor named Julian Gordon, and he says that he has apparently lost $40,000. Now, I've been hearing about this fund for years, principally through Antonio Moore's podcast, Tone Talks, and also through other YouTube funds. I also saw several years ago that the NFL Players Association issued a warning to its players about the fund and raising some concerns. I've seen Jay Morrison on a number of shows, also saw an interview with him on The Breakfast Club several years ago. I also remember various influencers talking about him and the fund. So needless to say, I have heard about this fund for years. I imagine that many of the people who invested did so with the intention of earning money for themselves and also for their kids. Hi, everyone. This is a PR Whisperer. I'm a public relations coach. And on this page, I offer commentary from the lenses of PR and faith. So I was talking about the Tulsa Real Estate Fund and the scores of people, mostly Black, who invested and possibly lost their money. Now, as I was thinking about this most recent news that the Black House, which was purchased by the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, was being sold, I came up with 4 PR lessons and really life lessons that I wanted to share with you. So the first is that desperation is dangerous. And I know that I've said this before and you've probably heard this from other people, but I want to give a reminder. Now, I know what it's like to be mired in debt. I know what it's like to dodge calls from bill collectors. I know what it's like to go to work to look nice and to be praying that my colleagues don't find out about the enormous debt that I was in. I know what it's like to put on a brave face, again, while having all of this debt. I also know what it's like to earn a decent living. I mean, to earn good money, but to be broke as soon as my paycheck hit my account. Now, the bottom line is that when we get desperate, especially around financial strain, or even when people are desperate for companionship, it can be really easy to make poor decisions or to look for things that are the one way or the one ticket that is going to get us away from our troubles, whether, again, that is financial or relationship. And when I was in this period of deep debt, I also felt shame. And we know that shame is destructive. And shame will also cause you to stop, or it will prevent you, excuse me, shame will prevent you from reaching out for help or for talking to people or being honest about where you are. Now, in this season, when I was in a lot of debt, I felt hopeless. I didn't feel comfortable talking to people because, again, I was making a decent amount of money, but I was still broke. I was making more money than people in my circle. And so I felt like I can't say that I'm making this money, but I am broke. I eventually found a podcast by Dave Ramsey. And when no one was around, I listened to that podcast. And I listened primarily when no one was around because, again, I didn't want people to know what I was going through. But for the first time when I found that podcast, I felt a sense of hope. And I felt like, okay, you are not alone. There are other people who are in this position. And I say all that to say that I'm very happy that I found a resource that wasn't asking me for my money. Because again, I was so desperate and I was so broken that I don't know that I would have made the best decisions. I imagine that for some people who invested in this fund, they could have invested out of a sense of desperation or out of a deep desire to change not just their financial situation, but also to change the future for their children. Again, all of this to say that when we get desperate, we can make terrible decisions. And we're also in a place where people can take advantage of us. So the next PR lesson or life lesson that I want to share, again, is a reminder because we know this theoretically. But I want to note that, most people are not as wealthy as they seem. And I will tell you, the times that we're living in are tough for a lot of people. And so you can make good money and you can still feel like, oh, I have this coming at me. I have this coming at me. How am I going to get ahead? I also want you to consider this. Nearly 30% of people live in homes and in communities that they cannot afford. So just because someone is in a big house, it doesn't mean that they can afford that house. And a common rule of budgeting is that you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your income on housing. And that includes your mortgage payment, your insurance payments, your property taxes, utilities, etc. So that's not just the mortgage, it's all the other things that help that home to function. But whether it is due to rising interest rates, whether it's due to wanting what we see someone else with or living above our means, 30% of homeowners as of the first quarter of 2023 were living beyond their means. They were house poor. Now, I mentioned a statistic from 2023, but this is something that has been trending for decades. This is not a new phenomenon. And so while the data point that I gave you was from 2023, it's been like this for years, right? So again, just because you see someone with a big house, it doesn't mean that they can afford that house. A big house in most cases means a big mortgage. It's the same thing with cars. Most people drive cars they cannot afford. Most people, when you couple the cars and the house and most people are traveling on credit, or many people are traveling on credit. Even think about credit card debt. According to a Federal Reserve Bank of New York, their quarterly report from the first quarter of 2023, the credit card debt in America was on the rise. And post-pandemic, the spending has gone up year after year after year in terms of debt. So again, you see people who look like they have it all together financially, and most of the people don't. I think that true wealth is stealth, meaning you can look at someone and they look very, very average, but that person could be very, very wealthy. So when you see someone and they seem like they have it all together, they look nice, maybe they are shooting a video or a podcast from their home, or from what they say is their home, it doesn't mean that what you see is all there is. There could be more below the surface. The next thing that I want to share, or the third PR tip or life lesson, is that just because a person gets media coverage, it does not mean that they are credible. Anyone can write a press release and post it on a website and claim legitimacy. Anyone can purchase a subscription to like a PR wire, again, write their press release and post it on the wire. Now, a wire is a service, and there are many wire services, but one is PR Newswire. And basically, you pay for a subscription. It is costly, but you pay for a subscription to the PR wire. You write your article. You can even include photos. You post it on there. And people searching your name on the internet may see that article, but that does not mean that the facts or the allegations in that article are true. So just because you Google a person's name and you see various articles, it does not mean the person is legitimate. It doesn't mean that they're credible. It doesn't mean that what they are saying is true. And in today's media landscape, many journalists are so busy. And I also think that the pool of investigative journalists, it has shrank. I don't know that it is as large today in 2024 as it was a decade ago or 20 years ago. So don't be fooled into thinking that because there is an article on a person, that makes that person credible. What I think we have to do is look for where the article was written, look for the volume of articles. Is it one? Is it like a wire article, or is it an article from a reputable media outlet? The other thing is, if you are vetting financial advisors or if you are vetting investment opportunities, you want to see stories from financial publications about the fund that you are considering or the person that you are considering. So it's not just that they have an article online. You want to find out what financial publications have written about that person or that fund. That's what I would be looking for. The final thing that I want to share is that when we think about how we want to invest whatever we have, right? You don't have to have a lot of money to invest. When you think about how to invest what you have, race cannot be the only consideration. When you invest, you want to look for people who have integrity, people who have experience, people who are values aligned with you. Race can't be the sole deciding factor about whether or not you are going to give someone or something your money. I also believe that, when you are considering investing and you're talking to different people, you want to leave those conversations smarter than when you entered. And so if you're talking to someone and you don't understand what they're recommending you do, that is a sign that it may not be time for you to invest at that point, because you want to understand, but you also want to feel wiser by the engagement. Whenever I hire someone, I appreciate people who bring me along, people who don't talk in such big words that I can't understand, but people who make very, very clear what they're proposing, how it's going to benefit me, what the metrics are, and that kind of thing. The final thing that I've adopted for myself is that if someone, and this is in any category of life, if I feel rushed or pressured to make a decision, that is an indication that it's probably not a good decision or a good relationship that I want to be in. So if you feel that someone is pressuring you to act now and to do this now, that is a red flag. And sometimes if we move really, really quickly, we don't have time to process what we're being told. We don't have time to talk to other people and to get their insight. I've heard it said that like each of us should have like a kitchen cabinet of advisors who know us. And when I'm making big decisions, I want time to go to people who know me and to go to people who are experts in one area or another and to bounce my decision off of them. But if someone is pressing you to move really, really fast, you don't have the time to sit with how you feel. And you also don't have the time to solicit the opinion of people who you trust. So these are, the PR tips and again, the life lessons that I drew and that I am taking away from this situation with Jay Morrison and the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. The other thing that you may know if you follow this fund is the name is Tulsa Real Estate Fund, but it's based in Atlanta. And so with this particular fund, it was hearkening what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma in terms of the desecration of the Black Wall Street there. This brings me kind of to a bonus, is that anything that plays on your emotions, you have to be very, very careful and very, very discerning and cautious and slow, because you want to make sure that you're not being emotionally driven to act in one way or another. So if you like this content, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for listening.